My daughter said, "Dad, let's go on a picnic." I never imagined it would be my last trip. We drove deep into the forest. At noon, we rested together. My daughter told me to lean against a tree and nap. "We'll be right here, Dad." When I woke, they'd vanished. I was stranded alone in the deep woods. They'd left me to die. But that was just the start. The true nightmare began when I crawled home weeks later and discovered they'd already held my funeral. Before I tell you what happened next, answer me this. What would you do if your own child abandoned you to die? And where are you watching this from right now? Drop your location and your answer in the comments. Because after what I went through, I need to know I'm not alone. I opened my eyes and there was no one. Just trees, just silence, just the cold seeping into my bones. My head pounded like someone had taken a hammer to it. My mouth tasted bitter metallic wrong. I blinked hard, trying to focus, trying to understand where I was and why everything hurt. The backpack was still under my head. I'd used it as a pillow, just like I always did on camping trips. But the car was gone. "Clarissa," my voice came out hoarse. "Donovan." Nothing. Just the wind moving through the pines, carrying that sharp scent of Sierra Nevada wilderness, the kind Aurelia used to love. I sat up slowly. Every muscle screamed. How long had I been lying here? The light was wrong. We'd eaten lunch around 1 and Clarissa had said I should rest. But now the sun was low, casting orange shadows through the trees. 6 in the evening, maybe later. 5 hours gone. "Clarissa," louder this time. "Where are you?" My heart raced. I pushed myself to my feet, stumbling. The clearing was still there. The blanket. The remains of lunch. But no car. No people. Just wilderness, stretching in every direction. "They went to get something," I told myself. "They'll be back." But even as I thought it, I knew it was wrong. This morning, Clarissa had shown up at my house in Sacramento, smiling. I hadn't seen her smile at me like that in years, not since Aurelia died. "Dad, let's go on a picnic, just like old times." I'd been so happy, so pathetically happy that my daughter wanted to spend time with me again. The drive up had been pleasant. 2 hours of winding roads. Donovan asking about my pharmacies, my retirement, how I was managing alone. I'd felt like I mattered. Lunch had been nice too. Sandwiches Clarissa made, ham and cheese my favorite, and juice. Donovan had poured it from a thermos. "Here you go, Mr. Whitmore. Fresh squeeze this morning." I'd drunk it all. It tasted slightly bitter, but I thought maybe it was just the grapefruit. Then Clarissa had said it, that gentle voice. "Dad, why don't you lie down, rest? We'll be right here." I'd trusted her. Laid my head down, closed my eyes, and let sleep take me. But now, standing here in the fading light, that bitter taste rushed back. Not grapefruit, not fresh juice gone bad. I knew that taste. The same taste from 5 years ago when the doctor gave me sleeping pills after Aurelia died, when I couldn't sleep, couldn't function. Those little white pills that knocked me out for 10 hours straight. But this was stronger, much stronger. My knees almost gave out. She drugged me. My own daughter drugged me and left me here. I turned in circles searching for any sign of them, any sign of the road. But there was nothing. Just trees, just the cold mountain air, just the realization settling in my chest like ice. They weren't coming back. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an accident. My 80-year-old hands started shaking. Not from the cold, from understanding. Hours passed. Then the sun began to set. I sat with my back against a pine tree facing the place where the car had been. Waiting. Still waiting. They went for help, I told myself. Maybe they drove down to find a ranger station. Maybe they were calling someone right now. Maybe they were already on their way back. Maybe. I wrapped the thin blanket tighter as the temperature dropped. Orange light faded to pink, then purple, then gray. I kept staring at the gap between the trees where my daughter should appear any moment. But the shadows stretched longer. The forest darkened. Nobody came. The cold arrived fast once the sun disappeared. Not a mild evening chill, but sharp mountain cold. I pulled my jacket close, but it wasn't enough. At 80, my body no longer held warmth. My fingers went numb, then my toes. I should have moved. I should have tried to make a fire. But moving meant accepting they weren't coming back, and I wasn't ready for that truth. The sounds started after dark. Rustling in the brush. Something moving nearby. My heart jumped. A deer, I told myself. Just a deer. Then I heard it. Low, distant howling. Wolves, coyotes, I didn't know. I'd spent my life selling medications in Sacramento, not surviving wilderness. The closest I came to nature were the plants Aurelia kept in our sunroom. Every snapping twig made me flinch. Every shadow shifted. I pulled my knees to my chest and tried to make myself small. My breath came in panicked gasps, fogging the freezing air. The night felt endless. I didn't sleep. I just sat there, shivering, listening to the forest breathe, wondering what waited beyond the dark. When dawn finally arrived, gray and bitter, I had never been so grateful for light. My legs were numb. I tried to stand and nearly fell. Everything hurt, but I forced myself up. I needed certainty. I walked to where the car had been parked, where Donovan had pulled into the clearing, where we'd eaten sandwiches the day before. Nothing. No tire tracks. No oil stains. No sign a vehicle had ever been there. I dropped to my hands and knees, searching. That's when I saw it. Broken branches placed deliberately over dirt, leaves scattered too evenly, disturbed ground smoothed over. My stomach twisted. I staggered to the next path. More branches, more leaves, the same careful covering. Another path, the same. Another, again. They'd done this to all of them. Every possible exit. They'd erased every trace of where they'd driven in every direction leading out. They'd made sure I couldn't follow, couldn't escape. This wasn't carelessness, this was methodical, planned. My hands shook, not from cold, from rage, from understanding. Clarissa hadn't just abandoned me. She had ensured I'd die here. She covered her tracks like someone hiding a crime. Because that's what this was. Murder. She was trying to murder me. Standing in that clearing at dawn, I understood something else. This wasn't sudden. It wasn't impulse. Someone planned this. The crushed sleeping pills in my juice. The remote location. The erased evidence. My own daughter. My baby girl. The child I held 49 years ago. The one I walked down the aisle. The one I gave everything to. She wanted me dead. As dawn broke on the second morning, I searched again for tire tracks. I found none. Every path was carefully covered. Broken branches, evenly scattered leaves. Every trace erased. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a mistake. This was planned. My own daughter wanted me dead. By the third day, time had lost all meaning. I knew only that I was hungry, desperately, impossibly hungry. This was not the gentle hunger of skipping breakfast. It felt alive inside me. My stomach no longer growled. It cramped, twisted, burned, as if my body was consuming itself. My mouth was a desert. My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. My lips were cracked and bleeding. When I tried to swallow, there was nothing, only the metallic taste of blood and bile. I had to find something. I stumbled through the underbrush, barely able to walk straight. The forest spun. Then I saw them a bush with small red berries, bright against the green. Were they safe? I didn't know. I didn't care. I grabbed a handful and shoved them into my mouth. The taste hit instantly, bitter, like chewing aspirin mixed with dirt. But I was starving. I swallowed and grabbed more. 5, 6, 7 berries. My eyes watered, but I kept eating. The cramps came immediately. Not hunger this time, something worse. I barely made it 3 steps before vomiting. Everything came up the berries. The little water I'd found bile, more bile, until I was dry heaving. When it stopped, I collapsed onto my side. The world tilted, my vision blurred. I lay on the cold ground, too weak to move. That was when I thought of Aurelia. My wife, my beautiful wife. She loved nature and the mountains. Everett, she used to say, we're lucky to live in California. She died 5 years ago, lung cancer. 6 months from diagnosis to goodbye. When she was gone, I thought the pain would kill me. It didn't. I kept going. I ran my 3 pharmacies. I lived in our house in the Sacramento suburbs. I kept her memory alive. That house, 3 bedrooms and a backyard, was worth maybe $300,000. And the pharmacies. 3 locations across Sacramento. I built them from nothing. 35 years of long days dealing with insurance suppliers and customers. They were mine. Profitable. The last appraisal valued them at over $1 million combined. Plus my savings. $450,000 in the bank. A $400,000 life insurance policy. Money meant for my children when I died naturally. Not like this. Lying there with vomit on my shirt and berry juice on my lips, I remembered Donovan. 6 months earlier, sitting in my living room. At your age, Mr. Whitmore, it's important to have everything in order. Have you updated your will? I thought he was being caring. He wasn't. He was calculating, measuring exactly how much I was worth. Clarissa had grown distant after Aurelia died. She said I was difficult. Too much work. She suggested assisted living. Those places cost money. My money. Money spent on my care instead of going to her. So no. Better to make me disappear. An old man lost in the wilderness, a tragic accident, then inheritance. They didn't want to wait. They didn't want to care for me. They wanted me gone, and this forest was meant to be my grave. My own daughter sold my life for 3 pharmacies and a house in Sacramento. I don't know how long I walked after that. Hours bled together. My feet moved on their own, one step after another, without thought. Then through the trees ahead, I saw it. A structure, walls, a roof, a cabin. Hope exploded in my chest. People. There had to be people. A ranger, a hunter, anyone who could help, anyone who could pull me out of this nightmare. I stumbled toward it, forcing my way through branches that scraped my face. The ground sloped into a narrow ravine. I half walked, half slid downward, grabbing roots and rocks to keep from falling. My bad leg screamed with every step, but I didn't care. There was shelter. There was hope. When I reached it, that hope began to crack. The cabin was old, very old. The wooden walls were gray with rot. Windows were broken, some missing entirely. The door hung crooked on rusted hinges. And the smell. Even outside, I could smell it. Mold, decay, death. I pushed the door open anyway. It creaked a long, painful sound. Inside was worse. Cobwebs stretched from ceiling to floor, thick as curtains. Dust coated everything. In the corner, I saw movement. Rats. Big ones. They scattered when I stepped inside claws, scratching the floor. "Hello!" My voice came out as a croak. "Is anyone here?" Nothing. Just scurrying inside the walls. I searched anyway. Cabinets, shelves, corners. Looking for food, water, anything. They were empty. Dust, cobwebs, dried insects. The floor groaned beneath me. A board cracked. I froze. The whole place felt unstable, ready to collapse. Then something flew at my face. I screamed and ducked. A bird burst from the rafters, wings beating wildly. It escaped through a broken window, leaving my heart racing. Then I felt something run across my foot. I looked down. A rat. Huge. Its eyes glowed red in the dim light. It stared, squealed, and ran. I ran too. Out of the cabin and back into the forest. I would rather die outside than inside that rotting trap. I kept walking. I had to. The sun moved across the sky. My throat burned with thirst. My vision blurred. Then I saw him. A man. A real person. About 50 yards away, walking along a narrow trail. "Help!" I tried to shout. "Please help me." He stopped, turned, looked at me. "I'm lost." I waved my arms. "Please." He saw me. We made eye contact. His face changed. His eyes widened. He stepped back. "No, wait." I stumbled toward him. "Please." He ran. He turned and ran as if chased. "Wait, I'm not." He was gone, swallowed by trees. I tried to follow, tried to run. My legs failed. I collapsed to my knees. Then I understood. I saw myself through his eyes. An 80-year-old man, filthy, bleeding, wild-bearded. I looked dangerous. Mad. He wouldn't call for help. He was fleeing. I was alone again. I collapsed onto my side and cried. Loud, broken sobs like a lost child in a supermarket calling for someone who would never come. My last hope had seen a monster, and it ran. I don't know how many days had passed. 4 or 5. Time no longer meant anything. I knew only hunger. Hunger that had moved beyond pain into something else. Something that made me see things that weren't there. I would see a plate of scrambled eggs resting on a rock. Blink, and it vanished. A sandwich on a tree stump. Blink gone. My mind was betraying me, showing me what my body screamed for. My stomach had stopped hurting. That frightened me. Pain meant my body was still fighting. Silence meant it was giving up. I stumbled through the forest, barely aware of where I was going. Then I saw it. A tree with small orange fruits hanging from a branch. Real fruit. Not a hallucination this time. I stared for a long moment, waiting for them to disappear. They didn't. The branch was high. 10, maybe 12 feet up. At 80 years old, I hadn't climbed a tree in 6 decades. But those fruits hung there like drops of hope. And I was so hungry. So desperately, impossibly hungry. I had to try. I found a foothold in the trunk, a knot worn smooth by weather. I tested it with my weight. It held. I reached up, grabbed another branch, and pulled myself higher. My arms shook. My legs trembled. Every muscle screamed that this was insane, that I would fall, that I would hurt myself. But I kept climbing. 1 foot, then the other. My hands found another branch. I pulled. My shoulders burned. My fingers cramped. I was 6 feet up, then 8. The fruits were closer, just a little more. My foot slipped. I hugged the trunk, heart pounding. Don't look down, just keep going. 10 feet. The fruits were right there. Orange, beautiful, real. I reached. My fingers stretched. Almost. I shifted my weight to reach farther. My foot landed on what I thought was solid. Crack! The world tilted. I saw the branch break in slow motion, felt my grip slide away. Then I was falling. Sky, trees, ground, sky, trees, ground. I hit hard. For a brief moment, there was nothing. Then the pain arrived. My left leg exploded with agony. Not pain. Agony. A white-hot force that shot up my spine and swallowed everything. I tried to scream, but no sound came. My lungs forgot how to work. I lay there, mouth open, drowning in it. I couldn't move, couldn't think, only feel. When I finally breathed, the scream that tore out of me didn't sound human. It sounded like an animal dying. My leg, oh God, my leg. I forced myself to look and instantly regretted it. It was wrong, twisted at an impossible angle. Swelling fast, turning purple and black. I could see bone pressing against skin. Broken, worse than broken. I was 80 years old, alone in the wilderness. No food, no water, no help coming. This was it. Not a hospital bed like Aurelia, not family at my side, but here on the dirt of the Sierra Nevada, my body failing. Clarissa had won. She didn't need to kill me herself. The forest was doing it for her. An old man wandered off and died. A tragic accident. No questions. Pain came in waves, each worse than the last. I tried to sit up and screamed again. Couldn't move. Could only lie there. The sun moved, or maybe it didn't. Time felt broken. I thought of Aurelia. Wondered if I'd see her soon. If she'd forgive me for trusting our daughter. For ending here. I'm sorry, I whispered to the trees, the sky, whatever was listening. Then through the haze of pain, I prayed for the first time since Aurelia's funeral. Lord, I whispered, if you're listening, please, I don't want to die like this. Not alone. Pain exploded through my leg again. I couldn't scream, couldn't breathe. I lay there helpless, my body on fire. This is it, I thought. This is how I die. I don't know how long I lay there. Minutes, hours. The sun moved across the sky, but time had stopped for me. The pain in my leg was everything, my entire world. Every heartbeat sent another wave of agony up from the shattered bone. I tried not to move. Even breathing hurt. I had to get up. Had to try. I couldn't just lie there and wait to die. I pressed my hands into the dirt and pushed, trying to sit up. The scream that tore out of me sent birds exploding from the trees. White-hot fire ripped through my leg. I collapsed back down, gasping stars bursting behind my eyes. Can't move, can't stand. So this was it. I would lie here until dehydration or exposure finished what the fall had started. Then I heard it. Water. Faint. Distant, but unmistakable. Running water. My throat was so dry I could barely swallow. My tongue felt swollen and useless. When had I last had water? Yesterday, 2 days ago, I couldn't remember. But it was close. Maybe 100 yards, maybe less. If I could reach it. I couldn't stand, but I could crawl. I rolled onto my stomach. Lightning shot through my broken leg, but I bit down until I tasted blood and stayed silent. I dug my elbows into the ground and pulled. My body slid forward 6 inches. 6 inches. Again. Elbows, pull, drag. My broken legs scraped behind me like dead weight. Every movement was agony, but I kept going. Pull, drag, pull, drag. The ground shredded my arms. Rocks scraped my elbows raw. My fingernails cracked as I clawed at roots and stones. Blood made my hands slippery. 10 feet, maybe 10 feet in an hour. The sound of water grew louder. It pulled me forward like a rope. Pull, drag. My vision blurred. Sweat or tears streamed down my face. I couldn't tell anymore. 20 feet. 30. Each yard felt endless. My body begged me to stop, to give up. But I could hear it now, water bubbling over rocks. Cool, clean, alive. Just a little more. My hand touched something wet. Moss. I'd reached the stream. I pulled myself forward one last time. My face dipped into the water. I couldn't lift my head. I turned my mouth sideways and drank. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever tasted. I drank until I choked, coughed, then drank again. The water was so cold it hurt my teeth, but I couldn't stop. I was desperately thirsty. I dragged myself until I lay half in the stream, half on the bank. The cold soaked through me, but I didn't care. There was water. Finally! Then my body began to shut down. The adrenaline was gone. I had nothing left. The edges of my vision darkened. The sound of water faded. This is it, I thought. At least I got water. Then I heard voices. Real or another hallucination. Shapes moved. People. I tried to speak. No sound came out. Hands touched me. Warm. Real. A face appeared above me. Dark skin. Black eyes filled with something I couldn't read. Strange words. A language I didn't know. More hands. lifting me. Were they saving me? Or was this just another way to die? I wanted to ask, to thank them, to beg. But the darkness pulled me under, and everything went black. When I opened my eyes again, the world had changed. I was no longer by the stream. I was indoors inside a small wooden house, dark but warm. Shadows moved around me. 3, maybe 4 people with dark skin and long black hair spoke in a language I had never heard. I tried to sit up. Pain shot through my leg. Someone gently pressed a hand to my shoulder, speaking softly. I flinched. It's okay. A different voice. English. American English. I turned my head. A young man, maybe in his late 20s, crouched beside me. He looked like the others, but wore jeans and a faded flannel shirt. You speak English? I whispered, my voice breaking. Yeah. I'm Beckett, he said with a gentle smile. You're safe? These are my people, the Shadowridge clan. We found you by the stream yesterday. You were barely breathing. Yesterday, I'd been unconscious for an entire day. Where? I tried to ask, but my throat was painfully dry. Beckett lifted a cup to my lips. About 3 hours' walk from Highway 50, deep in the mountains. We've lived here for generations. I drank. Clean water, cold, real. Then I started crying. I couldn't stop. Everything I'd held in for days poured out. Beckett said nothing. He just stayed beside me until I was done. Afterward, I told him everything. Clarissa, Donovan, the picnic, the crushed sleeping pills, being abandoned so they could inherit my pharmacies and my money. Beckett's expression hardened as he translated my story to the others. An older woman covered her mouth. A man shook his head in disgust. They spoke rapidly, one word repeating again and again, sharp with judgment. They can't believe a daughter would do that, Beckett said quietly. To us, family is sacred. Over the next weeks, they saved my life. An elder woman treated my leg with herbs that smelled sharp and earthy, wrapping it tightly with cloth. The swelling slowly faded. The pain eased. They fed me hot soup, thick bread, clean water. I slept on soft blankets while the forest breathed beyond the walls. Beckett visited daily. We talked about his life, growing up between worlds and mine-running pharmacies in Sacramento for 35 years. He told me he'd lost his mother young and been raised by the entire community. Family isn't always blood, he said one evening as we watched the sun sink through the trees. Sometimes it's the ones who find you when you're lost. I thought about my daughter leaving me to die, about strangers who owed me nothing but gave me everything. When I could walk again, leaning on a carved wooden cane they'd made, I decided. I need to go back, I told Beckett. For revenge. For justice, I said. If I don't stop them, they'll believe murder is acceptable as long as you don't get caught. He nodded. Then we'll help you. 3 of them walked with me through the forest for hours, moving slowly so I could keep up. At Highway 50, Beckett gripped my shoulder. You come back, he said. You're family now. I couldn't speak. I only nodded. A truck driver picked me up and drove me to Sacramento without questions. When he dropped me near my house, I stood there with my cane staring at the street I'd known my whole life. It looked the same, but I wasn't. I saw the black wreath from half a block away, a large black wreath hanging on my front door. I leaned on my cane staring, my hands started shaking. As I got closer, I saw the sign beneath it. Rest in peace, Everett Whitmore, 1944-2024. Beloved father and businessman. They'd declared me dead. Mr. Whitmore. A voice behind me. I turned. Mr. Leopold from next door stood on his lawn, his newspaper falling from his hands. But they said you were dead. Mrs. Constance appeared on her porch, her hand flying to her mouth. Young Jameson dropped his skateboard. It clattered loudly on the sidewalk. They said you slipped and fell during a mountain hike. Mrs. Constance whispered, tears already streaming down her face. That they couldn't find your body. They had a memorial service last week. My jaw clenched. A memorial service? While I was crawling through the forest with a broken leg. I turned back toward my house. I could hear voices inside. Laughter. I pushed the door open. The scene inside made my blood boil. Clarissa and Donovan Merrick sat at my dining room table, surrounded by papers. Contracts for my 3 pharmacies. My savings account statements. Life insurance documents showing $400,000. But it wasn't just the papers. It was everything else. Furniture tagged with labels. For Clarissa. Sell. $500. Donate. My bookshelf, the one I'd built with my own hands 30 years ago, had been torn apart. Books I'd collected over a lifetime were stacked in cardboard boxes like garbage. The wedding photo of Aurelia and me, the one that had hung above the fireplace for 40 years, lay face down on the floor. And my reading chair. the leather armchair where I'd sat every evening reading for 3 decades. There was a price tag stuck to it, sell $500. They were selling my life, piece by piece. Donovan looked up first. The color drained from his face like he'd seen a ghost, because he had. Clarissa turned around. The papers slipped from her fingers. "Dad!" Her voice came out as a croak. Footsteps thundered down the stairs. Theodore burst into the room, Juliana right behind him. "Dad?" Theodore's face crumpled. He ran to me, throwing his arms around me. "Oh my God, Dad, you're alive!" He was crying, his whole body shaking. "I thought... They told me you slipped and fell off a cliff, that they searched for days but couldn't find your body. I've been crying for 2 weeks." Juliana stood frozen, her hands covering her mouth, tears streaming. I hugged my son tightly. Then over his shoulder I looked directly at Clarissa. "Clarissa," I said quietly, "why don't you tell your brother about that wonderful picnic you planned?" Theodore pulled back, looking between us confused. I told him everything. The Sunday morning smile. The juice with crushed sleeping pills. Waking up alone in the Sierra Nevada. 6 days of hell. The deliberately erased tire tracks. The berry poisoning. The broken leg. Crawling to a stream to die. Theodore's face changed with every word. Confusion became horror. Horror became rage. "Tell me it's not true." He turned to Clarissa, his voice breaking. "Tell me Dad is lying. Tell me..." Clarissa's mouth opened, closed. Nothing came out. Donovan stared at the floor. "You let Dad die in the woods?" Theodore's voice rose to a scream. "You lied to me. You made me grieve for him. I spoke at his memorial service. I cried in front of 100 people. We didn't think..." Clarissa started. "You didn't think he'd survive," Theodore shouted. "You thought you'd get away with murder." Juliana was sobbing now, clutching Theodore's arm. The neighbors had crowded into the doorway. Mr. Leopold's face was white with fury. Mrs. Constance was crying. Jameson had his phone out, recording everything. I looked at the dining room table, at the contracts dividing up my life's work, at the price tags on my memories, at my daughter who'd tried to kill me for 3 pharmacies and some cash. And then I heard it. Sirens. Getting closer. "I called the police from the highway before I came home," I said calmly. "I also called the newspapers, because this won't be quiet. All of Sacramento is going to know what you tried to do." The police walked in, and behind them reporters with cameras. 2 officers surveyed the scene. The contracts spread across the table. The price tags on furniture, the black wreath still hanging outside. One officer's jaw tightened. "Mr. Whitmore." The lead officer approached me. "We received your call. Can you tell us what happened?" I told them everything. Again. The Sunday picnic. The sleeping pills. 6 days in the Sierra Nevada. The erased tracks. The broken leg. Crawling to survive. The reporters' cameras flashed. One was crying. "We can confirm his story." Mr. Leopold stepped forward, his voice shaking. "They told us he was dead, that he'd slipped and fallen off a cliff. They even held a memorial service 2 days ago." Mrs. Constance nodded, wiping her eyes. "We all attended. We mourned him." The officer examined my leg, still wrapped in Shatteridge bandages. My torn clothes. My hands scarred from crawling through the forest. He turned to Clarissa and Donovan. "Clarissa Whitmore and Donovan Merrick, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder by abandonment fraud, forgery of death documents, and elder abuse." The metallic click of handcuffs echoed through my living room. Clarissa's face crumpled. Donovan stared straight ahead, empty. As they were led out, I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not anger, just emptiness where a daughter's love should have been. The story exploded across Sacramento. Local businessman survives daughter's murder plot, returns for justice. My face was on every news channel. Reporters interviewed neighbors. The Pharmacy Association released statements. People I'd never met sent flowers and cards. The trial came 3 months later. Beckett traveled from Shatteridge with 2 elders. They testified about finding me near death, by the stream, barely breathing bones visible through my skin. "I've been a judge for 30 years, Judge Harrison said, her voice cold as steel. "Abandoning your elderly father in a remote wilderness to die is among the cruelest acts I've ever witnessed. You didn't just try to take his life. You tried to erase him, to profit from his death while he suffered alone." Clarissa Whitmore, 20 years in state prison. Donovan Merrick, 20 years in state prison. Everything they wanted, the pharmacies, the savings, the respect gone. their reputations destroyed, friends vanished, assets seized to pay legal fees and restitution. Theodore stayed. He moved in with me, helped me walk when my leg ached. We hung Aurelia's portrait back above the fireplace where it belonged. We rebuilt what Clarissa had tried to destroy. But there was something I needed to do. 6 months after the trial, I returned to Shadowridge. Theodore drove me. We brought $50,000 in cash, food, warm clothes, medical supplies. When I saw Beckett again, I couldn't speak. I just held him, like the son I'd found when my daughter had abandoned me. "You gave me more than life," I finally whispered. "You gave me hope." Beckett smiled. "You were already strong, Mr. Whitmore. We just reminded you." Before I left, I met with the tribal elders, showed them the updated will. A portion of my estate enough to build a medical clinic, improve homes, educate their children would go to the Shadowridge community, and Beckett would receive a scholarship fund. Family, I told them, isn't about blood. It's about who finds you when you're lost. Now, sitting in my reading chair, the one Theodore saved from being sold, I understand something I never did before. Justice isn't just about punishment, it's about restoration. It's about ensuring good people are protected and cruel people face consequences. My daughter tried to bury me in the mountains. Instead, she buried herself. And the strangers who owed me nothing, they became my family. I'm 80 years old now. I've lived through a lot, but nothing prepared me for the moment my own daughter tried to erase me from this world. If you're listening to this grandpa story, let me give you some advice. Don't wait until it's too late to see who truly loves you. Don't measure family by blood alone. I built 3 pharmacies, saved $450,000, and thought that made me successful. But real wealth is knowing who will stay when you have nothing left. Thank God I survived those 6 days. Thank God for the Shadowridge people who found me by that stream. And thank God I lived long enough to see justice served, because not everyone gets that chance. This true story isn't just mine. It's a warning. Watch the people around you. Notice who asks about your will more than your health. Notice who smiles when they want something versus who cries when you're hurting. Don't be like me, blind to the greed hiding behind familiar faces. But if you find yourself abandoned, betrayed, left for dead, remember goodness exists in unexpected places. Sometimes strangers become family. Sometimes survival is the greatest revenge. These grandpa stories teach us hard lessons. This true story changed my life forever. I'm sharing these grandpa stories because true stories like mine need to be told. Evil hides in silence. Justice grows in the light. So if this touched your heart, don't just walk away. Leave a comment below. Tell me about the family you've chosen, not just the one you were born into. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to this channel for more meaningful stories that remind us humanity still exists, even in the darkest forest.